past couple of years, the people who have signed up for flowers has diminished. So you'll look out there and you can see if there's a date that you would like to have the altar flowers. They are $25 for that week, and the flowers are in fact yours after the service. So again, that's out there. There are a lot of dates available, so take a moment and look at that. Coming up at the end of the month on the 27th is Back to Basics. It's kind of like our old District Day of Learning. And we invite people who are part of the committee or part of one of the teams here at the church to think about going. You can see there Board of Trustees, Finance, Administrative Board. But we're inviting people to go to that and gather some information so that we can better serve the church and the congregation. This coming Saturday at 6:30. And again, we have conflicts here, so watch your email. It says 6:30 in the bulletin. I thought it was at 6 o'clock, but we'll go with Tina because she's always right. So at 6:30, we're going to gather in the up here on the main floor for our birthday bash. We did it last year. Come, we're going to celebrate everybody's birthday. So we invite you to come. We'll obviously have some cake and ice cream, but also some other festivities along the way. So we hope you'll come and be part of that. Friday night we'll gather together downstairs in the gym for a hockey night. So if you have little ones that want to come and play hockey, or you're not, or others, everybody's welcome to come and be part of that fun. And the information is in your bulletin as well. Also, where is Jean? Jean, you wanted to share?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to extend an invitation to the women of the church. On Wednesday, May 9th, a Ladies' Day conference for and about women will be held at the Keswick Center in Wayne, New Jersey. The guest speaker will be Liz Curtis Higgs. Liz is an international award-winning speaker as well as the author of 37 books, including the Bad Girls of the Bible series and many others. Liz has spoken at more than 1,700 conferences in all 50 states of the U.S. and 15 foreign countries. Her messages are biblical, encouraging, down-to-earth, and profoundly funny, helping both sisters and seekers embrace the truth of God's amazing, unchanging grace. We encourage the women of Epworth to take advantage of this opportunity to join in fellowship with this event. The cost is $25 per person, or if we have more than 10 people, we will pay the group rate of $22. The cost includes all 3 sessions, a continental breakfast, a gourmet box lunch, and if cost is an issue, please talk to me privately. The program begins at 9 a.m. and ends at 3 p.m., with the doors opening at 8. This is a popular speaker, and we will need to obtain our tickets as early as possible. We've set a deadline for January 25th. We will leave Palmyra approximately 7 a.m. It is recommended that we be there when the doors open at 8 a.m., as this is usually sold out, and as of this past week, 300 of the 600 tickets available have already been sold. So if you intend on going, we would hope that you would consider it. Please sign up on the sheet in the narthex and let me know by the 5th of January. After that, it will be what's available if you sign up after that. This event will be open to all women, so feel free to invite a friend.
I was also told Mary's Closet is looking for blankets and children's clothes.
Children's clothes, yes.
Warm clothes, I'm assuming. So,
We have no blankets at the moment.
okay. So kind of be aware of that, and they can be dropped off on Friday.
Wednesday between 11 and 3
Okay.
and Friday.
Okay. So Wednesday between 11 and 3, and Friday probably most of the afternoon.
Yeah.
So again, if you can help out with that. Is there anything else we need to lift up this morning? Yes, Vicki.
Today's the last day of the half-price nut sale, and we have out everything we have left, and thank you all for your support.
You can hold out, because she said today is the last day for the half price. So maybe there's a quarter price, so stop by and bargains. Let's take a moment and greet one another and love to see you, Jesus Christ.
Good morning. Please turn to me with soul worship. Do not walk in darkness, but live in the light.
Don't stumble around in ignorance, but walk straight in the wisdom of God.
May the light of God penetrate this holy place.
Give us light to see the path of God set before us, and go forward unafraid.
As witness in the hymn we gather together on page 131 for our home.
Checking to make sure I turn the microphones on, which I don't. Oh, good catch.
Yeah.
People at home are now.
I don't know how to That wouldn't have been pretty.
So where is it that you have seen God this
I knew that was going to fall at some point.
Thank you. Is this like really, really good news? Oh, okay. I didn't know if this was the ultimate good news.
Prayers.
Okay.
I'm trying to sell my house. I teach at a local high school, and a couple months ago, one of my students who was with me last year in choir and signed up again this year, about a month and a half ago, he majorly dropped off, just stopped paying attention, didn't show up to the concert. This kid loves singing. He's an incredible young man. And Thursday, I brought him into my office and I just, what is going on with you? And he just kind of unleashed me. He said, I only know two ways in life of making money. One is music and one is fighting. And he said, right now the only thing I can see in my life is fighting. And he stated that he had been out on the streets more so than doing anything else, and just kind of admitted to having lied to a lot of people. And he said, you're the first person that's come to me and said, what's going on? And I invited him out Saturday morning for our musical, and he came and he hung out with 40 completely opposite students than what he's been, and he was singing and dancing and having a great time. It was really amazing seeing this teenager get to act like a teenager instead of something else, and it was just really cool. So I'm praying he's going to continue to come out and be a joy to himself and to others. So it's very cool.
So maybe the bright spot is the fact that Kate took the time to ask. Because I think that's part of the problem, is that we notice things and we just kind of let it go. And, you know, one of the things that she said is you're the first person that's asked what's going on. And so take and keep your eyes and your ears and hearts open. When somebody changes, when they're not doing the things that they normally do, that's really a clue for us to take and say, hey, what's going on? What can I do? Is there anything I can do to help? Or just to be able to say, you know, I care about you. And just because of that, that changes lives. And especially with our young kids, they sometimes don't know where to turn. And they're certainly not going to turn to a teacher, you know, and maybe not to a parent, but maybe to just somebody else that says, you know what, I care about you. And that may be the first person in a long time that's made that. So thank you. It's an example for all of us. Anybody else have a...
This morning as I was coming out to get into the car, which I didn't want to do, it was cold. I wasn't anxious to come out into this bitter cold. I thought, oh no, not again. And while I was, getting myself together, getting things in the car, I suddenly became aware that somewhere in my immediate surrounding was a little bird that just kept chirping the same three notes over and over, and it sounded so cheerful. I'm like, who am I to be sitting here thinking of complaining about this weather? This bird is enjoying, well, apparently enjoying. I don't know if it was enough to sing and cheer me. So I thank God for that little moment.
Listen later, because we will have our scripture speaks of the small birds and the example that they have for us. Joseph.
This is past the fact, but when I was in New Hampshire, we had many snowfalls. We had snow glaze over, and my daughter took me for a ride to see the Christmas lights, but we drove through woodlands. It was snowing like crazy. There was nobody but us out there. And so ahead of us, we're driving near these trees, and the snow in front of us, and the shiny surface of what had been there before. And it was like driving through a Christmas card.
It was just another view of God's gift to us. You know, it was magnificent.
Nobody had like a bright spot around 7:30 yesterday? A little bit, yeah. Some of us had to wait till 11:45. But congratulations, we're playing one more week. So we'll see where that all goes. Let's have a word for it. Boo. But God, we come and certainly do give thanks for the ways that you take and lay out the world for us. And sometimes we just need to be noticing those songs of a bird in the morning or the beautiful scenery that you make with snow falling. But help us also, God, to have hearts that are open to those around us who need someone to just show Christian love, to just take and say, I'm concerned, I'm thinking about you, and how it is that that can begin to make a difference. Help us not shy away from the compassion that you have placed in our hearts. But when we do those kind of things, we truly are created in your image, and allow that image of you and your Son to shine through. For that, we give thanks. Amen.
Our scripture reading this morning is Isaiah 54:14-17, found in your pew Bible on page 1148. In righteousness you will be established. Tyranny will be far from you. You will have nothing to fear. Terror will be far removed. It will not come near you. If anyone does attack you, it will not be my doing. Whoever attacks you will surrender to you. See, it is I who created the blacksmith, who fans the coals in the flame and forges a weapon fit for its work. And it is I who have created the destroyer to wreak havoc. No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and this is their vindication from me, declares the Lord.
Our second scripture this morning is coming from the Gospel of Matthew, beginning in the 10th chapter, the 26th verse. So do not be afraid of them. There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the roofs. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. And are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground from the will of your Father. And even the very hairs on your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You're worth more than many sparrows. May God bless the reading and hearing of this holy word. This morning we're starting a sermon series called Hot Topics. As I thought about this back in December, I was thinking about all the things that were happening around us in the world in which we live. And I said that maybe, and I tend to stay away from social topics, because I realize there's people on both sides, and we'll be talking about this in a few weeks. But I'm going to navigate this minefield over the next few weeks, and we're going to be talking about today, for example, how do we live in the midst of fear? Next week we're going to spend some time talking about fake news. Not sure how many pastors are talking about fake news, but if you come here next week, we're going to talk about fake news. And not necessarily from a political standpoint, but how it is that we deal with mistruth. We're going to talk about foreigners in our midst. There's a conversation, right? Especially in light of this past week and what's happening with some legislation. How do we deal with these foreigners that are in our midst? We're going to talk about the fact that we live in a black and white world, that there seems to be no middle ground. We're living in a D and an R world. You know, everything seems to be on extremes, not a lot happening in the middle. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And we're going to wrap up in mid-February talking about how it is that we live in a world that's changing culturally so fast, it's so different. And so how do we engage in that culture? How do we deal with our longings for what was in the midst of what is and what will be? So my hope is that the one or two or all of those are intriguing to you, and that you'll come and continue to join us and pay attention, because there are some things I'm going to be asking for some input from, probably via Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, pretend like you like me, and maybe you can be my friend, and I will gather some of that input along the way. Speaking of which, this past week, as I knew I was going to be talking about fear, I asked the question, what is it that you fear? And I'm not talking about and thinking about just things like, spiders and snakes or heights, but really wanted people to try to kind of vocalize or tell me what it is that you fear. What is it that maybe that affects your life? So I'm going to ask that question if anybody wants to share. What is it that you fear? What is it that affects maybe a little bit how you go through life? Or what is it, those things that you're thinking about that when I think about this, causes me concern? I'm worried. Or anybody? Failure. Okay.
Illness.
Illness. Okay.
Yeah. Unintentional war.
Unintentional war.
Permanent disability.
Permanent disabilities. had a lot of different responses. Failure was one that I've had people mention. Age concerns as we get older. You know, what's our capacity going to be like? The idea of just taking and moving forward, and loneliness was there. I got to tell you that it was kind of took me aback, because some of the responses that I had weren't the direction I wanted to go in. You know, because you kind of ask a question sometimes, and you know what you want the answers to be, and people give you a different answer. So I tried to put it out there to try to get it out, because where I was going, and when I first started thinking about this idea of living in the midst of fear, I started thinking about the fact that some of the things that I'm fearful of is realizing, it mentioned unintentional war, but I'm really concerned about that the whole North Korea peninsula. I hearken back to the days when I was young. I wasn't a dive under the school desk generation. I was beyond that. But I still had this idea that, you know what, all we need is people start pressing buttons, regardless of how big they are, and we could annihilate the world. We literally could take and do that. And that was concerning me. I'm concerned about the direction of some of our international dialogue, and again, how it is that we're talking to each other, and the things that we're doing that are provocative. I'm concerned about, one of the things I'm concerned about our climate. And the area that I'm concerned about is our rainforests. That I see people cutting down rainforests at an incredible rate so that they can sell the wood to take and provide for their families. And I know that takes and does something. If nothing more, it's killing off species and things. So I wonder what's that going to be like for my great-grandkids. Will they be able to know these rainforests like I do? So these are like big things that, you know what, I don't let them grab me. They don't really, I don't wake up in the morning worrying about terrorists, but they are things that are heavy on my heart at times as I hear different things happening. So one of the things that I always do is I want to come back, and if we're going to talk about fear, we ought to know what we're talking about. So fear, one dictionary tells us, is a distressing emotion aroused by impending danger, evil, pain. Whether the threat is real or imagined, it's the feeling or condition of being afraid. Now, I think there's an element to that, right? That real or imagined fear. And I think some people have real fear about things, and there's other ones that are like we kind of sit back and go, okay, that's not really something you should be afraid of. Don't be afraid of the zombie apocalypse. Not thinking that's going to happen anytime soon. Hear this, though, it's from Psychology Today. And I read this and I said, this really, I think, gets to the core of fear. Fear is a vital response to physical and emotional danger. If we didn't feel it, it couldn't protect ourselves from legitimate threats. But often we fear situations that are far from life or death and thus hang back for no good reason. Did you catch all of that? The idea that fear is a legitimate thing that's part of who we are. It helps keep us safe. It helps keep us alive. We take and have fear of things, and that causes us at times to step away or go in another direction. We need fear. We put fear in our children, right? If you touch this, you will burn your hand. We're giving you fear that you will burn, but they will still do that. But guess what? They will fear putting that hand on that hot burner in the future because they're afraid of getting burned. There are legitimate fears. But there's also fear, and I think sometimes emotional fear, that takes and is not life-threatening, but I've come up with saying it's life-curtailing. It keeps us from living our lives to the fullest. We take and allow fear for example, fear of failure to keep us from taking and stepping forward and towards a challenge or take a risk. How many people have taken and failed again until they finally get it right? But there are some who, that fear of the failure is so strong, they won't even take a chance. They won't even try because failure to them is way too big a high price. So they step and stay back. And I think sometimes lose out. We live in a world of fear. As I take and pay attention, we live in a fear-driven world at some point. Think about how it is that it's driven by the media. I don't know the intentionality of it, but if you think about something that happens, in yesteryear, we might see it for about 45 seconds to a minute, on the nightly news. They would cover something that happened maybe in another country or someplace. But now we live in a world where that's on the news. It's on the minute it's happening with the live broadcast, taking and showing us videos of the devastation or whatever it is that's happening. And then they continue on for hours trying to get to the next little thing. And the journalistic part of, you know what, let's wait until we get it right, steps away from we want to be first. We want to be the first to show this clip. We want the first to show and what happens is it starts building on us. People understand that we are motivated by fear, and they do what they can to push those buttons that take and ignite that fear in us. So we have a choice on how it is that we go and face the fear of our lives, whether they're real or imagined, whether they're physical or emotional. We have to figure out how is it then we're going to deal with this fear, because it's around us. We can't separate ourselves from the world in which we live. So, yeah, I'm kind of standing up here and we're at church. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is how do we deal with fear? We need to deal with it through our faith. We need to take and hear the fact that God makes a promise to take and be with us, that we're not alone in this world. God has surrounded us with people who love and care for us, but God has also made a promise to us, and again, hear these words from Isaiah 41. God says to us, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with a righteous right hand." Now, let me ask a question. God's saying He's with us, that He is there to hold us and hold us up with His righteous right hand. Ever been with somebody who's afraid and they want to hold your hand? And as the more afraid they get, the tighter they squeeze. Or maybe they grip your arm, and the more afraid they are, the tighter they squeeze. And you sit there in the midst of your own pain as the fingernails dig into your arm. You realize the fact that you're there. And you're there to take and allow them to hold on and to squeeze tight. To take and assure them they're not alone, that you are there with them. And so squeeze on. Hold on tight, because together we're going to get through this. And God's saying the same thing to us. I'm here. I'm not letting go. Don't you let go. God makes a promise to be with us. And I think that's important. And we heard it in the scripture this morning too, about the 2 sparrows. God doesn't let them fall. God allows them to continue to soar, to fly. And I believe that to some extent when we put our faith and our trust in God, we too can continue to soar and to fly. But quite often in the midst of our own fear, we take and somehow forget that God has made promises to us, that God is there for us. And so we begin to go through life and we allow the worries and the concerns and the anxiety of life to have a grip on us. And hear what Paul says about that. And these are all, to some extent, familiar to you. Paul says to us, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ. We take and allow the anxiety and the worries of life to have a grip on us. And Paul says, no, you got to give it to God. Take and pray to God. Cry out to God. Let God know that right now I'm really scared. Right now I'm really afraid that something's going to happen, or this is happening, or I'm facing this problem, or someone I know is facing a problem. But give it to God. And Jesus, what does Jesus tell us? Don't worry about tomorrow. There's enough happening right here, right now. Let tomorrow take care of itself. So often, we spend so much of our time and our energy and our emotions worrying about things that never, ever will happen. Because somehow we do all that and we are exhausted emotionally, sometimes even spiritually. But we need to just give it to God. Hold on to God as God's holding on to you. Let things go. And one of the other ways that I think we can deal with fear is to get ourselves out of that negative thinking and to turn our thoughts to be more positive. Here again, Paul, he said, and again, this is still from Philippians 4. He says, finally, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there's any virtue, and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. See, I think that's really a good mindset. That regardless of what's happening, is there anything that you can give thanks for? Anything that's happening? I remember the Boston bombing at the marathon. You know, we're all sitting there wondering and watching as all these injured people are there, all the horror of that, what's happening. But in the midst of that, there were people running back. Remember? People running back to the injured. People taking and doing whatever they could. So in the midst of all of that, in the midst of all the fear, in the midst of all the questions, praise God, there were people that were saying, you know what, I don't care. I'm going back. I'm going to help whoever I can. And so meditate on those things. When someone's ill and maybe has something that's wrong, I remember being part of with an accident, and there's so much to be concerned about, and we play all the negative what-if games. Certainly give thanks that the report came that the person was stable. Focus on that. They're stable, Healing can take place now. They're stable. There are things that happen, and you say, well, I'm so afraid of this or afraid of that. But what is it that you can see that's the good? And focus on that. And I believe it begins to change your outlook. I really fear that, if I do this, it's not going to work, and But what if it does? Focus on that. Focus on a good outcome. Focus on what could be happening that's on the good side. And you know what? It changes. It changes your energy. And the people that are around you will sense that too. And maybe that'll lift them. You see, to me, it comes down to a lot about faith. You know, in the coming weeks, we're going to be talking about some other things, and I think that fear plays a part of it. But if we're going to focus in on the negative, you know, I think it leads us nowhere. I think there are things we need to do to be vigilant, to be protecting of ourselves, our situations. But we can't take and stop going to movie theaters. We can't stop going to malls. We can't stop trying to step out and do the right thing because somebody might ridicule us and we might not get it right. If not us, then who? We live in a world that's fearful. In a little while, during the offering, I'm going to share a song that Tina pointed out called Fearless. And you know what? I'd much rather be fearless than fearful. I don't know what your fears all may be. Pray to God about it. Pray to God. Trust in God. God is there to defend you and hold you in that precious right hand. He's not letting go. Don't let go either. Don't worry about tomorrow. Be concerned about here, now, what you can control. Life will be different. Let's pray. For God, at times we do walk through life fearful of what's around the next bend. We're fearful for loved ones that we care about and maybe decisions they're making. God, we're fearful that people who we don't even know may be able to change the course of our lives or even destroy them. But for God, what we can say is, as you said in your scriptures, we need to be worried about you and our relationship with you, who can take not only our lives but our very souls. And we trust those souls to you. We trust our lives to you. We trust your Son, that he came and gave so much so that we would know the love you have for us. Help us to take and have that in our own hearts and in our own souls in those moments when doubt and fear and being afraid seems to be where we're heading. You can lift us up if only we put our trust and faith in you and in your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. I should stand as you're able, and let's sing together, Because He Lives.
Because
Tina reminded me this morning, is their theme for the weekend is fearless. And as I thought about it, and Tina happened to find a song, I think it's by Jasmine Murray, it's called Fearless, and it's their theme song for the weekend. And as I looked at it and watched it and listened to it, I realized it's like right where we are this morning too. So as we take and gather our offerings and tithes, we'll take and share that. So I don't know if they're not coming forward, so maybe they're not going to collect an offering this morning. So just thought I'd invite you guys to come down and collect their money. So as they do the offering, I invite you to take and share fearless.
Measure up if I
opportunity through these gifts to go out and proclaim the good news that is your Son, to help others take and live a life full of hope and full of love that comes in Christ's holy name. Amen. We do have some prayer shawls this morning that we want to take and share this morning. As you know, the prayer shawls are made by our people that take and do them specifically for those in mind. So we have one this morning for Angela Cheeseman, one for Catherine Imms, Ted Batoni, Jones Sipperidge, Ren King. All of those are for people who are having some health issues and health concerns. We have one for Fred Cook, as we remember his loss. And also one here for the Brian and Becky Boley to take and share that with them the joy of their marriage last fall. So let's take and have a word of prayer. So God, we come and give thanks for this ministry that takes and it just reaches out with your love through these gifts of prayer shawls. We know, oh God, that as each was made, that prayers were lifted for them, and for some it's prayers of healing to take and help them to be able to get through whatever they may be challenging in their own health. For some to take and understand that their loss is on our others' hearts as well. And even to take and celebrate those moments of joy when two people come together. We give thanks, oh God, for the ability to take and share your love in your Son through this special ministry. And now I ask for your blessing to be upon each and every one of these shawls, that they may know your love that has no end. In Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. We do come together as people of God and certainly do share our life journey with one another. And it's right that we do that through our prayers. So it is reaching out and to God in both the joys and also in those moments of concern and worry. I take and want to lift up to you this morning to take maybe and spend a few minutes with your bulletins throughout the week and just think about those that are listed. There are many of our own church family and people who our church family knows that are listed. So please take some time to just consider them. You may not know the names, you may not recognize them, but God does. As we heard in the scripture, God knows the number of hairs on our heads and certainly knows what it is that people need there as well. We specifically want to take and lift up the Tatum family. Yesterday we celebrated Betsy's life here, and want to give thanks to the flowers on the back of the chancel were all flowers from the funeral yesterday. And so we take and have that reminder of how awesome Betsy was in the life of this church. And so we remember her and her family this morning as well. So let's come before God. Oh God, we come and we think of you and think about how it is that you've touched our lives. At times, oh God, we do allow other things to grab a hold of us, to grip us, to tear us away from being the people that we need to be. But God, in you have always been there for us. You've been there when we haven't felt well, and you've heard our prayers for healing. You've been there for us when our hearts are breaking because someone we love has gone to be with you. God, you've been with us in those moments of trial when we've done our best we can, and yet that doesn't seem to be good enough. God, we give thanks never abandon us, but love us. Love us even when those mistakes do happen, and even when they happen against you. Oh God, you love us so much, you sent your Son to settle the score, to make things right. And for that we give thanks. We come and certainly do think of all of those that are part of our prayer ministry. We think of those that aren't able to get out and miss being here, being present with us. We think of those members of God who are recovering from different ailments, procedures, surgeries, or just dealing with the fact of age is creeping in. Be with them. Be with our friends, oh God, who are dealing with so many different issues of life. Some health, sometimes it's just getting by with the basics. God, we lift them to you this morning. And we think of those, even as we gather here in this place, of those who find themselves outside this morning, unable to find shelter, maybe even food, maybe even find warmth. God, we just lift them to you, oh God. And if given the opportunity, oh God, help us to continue to be able to make a difference. You are our God. And with your help, we truly can be fearless. So come now, O God, and hear the meditations of our hearts, hear the words that we lift to you. And we simply ask, Lord, hear our prayers.
Lord, I lift up Pam Carmen, my Emmaus sister in Christ, who has returned to the hospital, sadly my Please keep her strength up. She has such a strong faith, and I know at times she struggles with that. Lord, please hear her prayers.
Lord, hear our prayers.
Prayers for the Brown family, who yesterday they buried their father.
Lord, hear our prayers.
Prayers for my daughter Denise, who was led back to Jefferson last Sunday. This home, the faces are very innocent.
Lord, hear our prayers. God, I pray for each and every one of us gathered here this morning. Quite often, oh God, we go through life and keep life to ourselves. And yet, oh God, we may be struggling with our own ailments, our own issues of mind, body, soul. We may be struggling with our own relationships within our families. We may be struggling with our own needs to get by. Meet us, God, where we need you today. And help us never be afraid of calling out to you, even crying out to you, and know that you are there to hear us, to hold us, to lift us. No matter what the day may look like, we know that the sun will rise tomorrow, and you will be there, loving us just the same. And for that we give thanks. And give thanks assuredly for your Son, Jesus, who while he was with us, he gave us words. That even when words escape us, these words can be there to speak volumes. And so from our hearts, we simply say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is stand as you're able, and let's sing together, My Hope is Built. Let us leave this place. Leave this place and go without fear. For no matter where you may go, no matter what you may do, God is with us. God is there to love us and protect us. And God is there to see us through. Now and forever, that's God's promise to us. So go forth in faith. Go forth in the love of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Now and forever. Amen.